We sometimes inherit SQL Server environments where the client has paid a really good consultant for a really good assessment, and I mean a good assessment. The findings are right, the recommendations all make sense. We know a lot of the people who do these assessments. We respect them and we work with them, and we've known a lot of them in the community for a long time. And sometimes it's our report. And then we look at the report, and it's a year old. And then we look at the client, and not a single one of the important recommendations has been completed. And for more than a few, none of the recommendations have been completed. The reports in this case didn't fail. It's just what happened after the reports that failed, or what didn't happen after the reports. And if you're thinking about paying anybody, including us at StraightPath, for a SQL Server health assessment or health check or whatever you want to call it, that's the part I think you should actually care about. There are many reasons that we see this absence of changes over and over and over. The last one is uncomfortable though for us consultants. Sometimes it means we have to admit that just maybe we're part of the problem in how we deliver recommendations, and we'll cover that one as the last reason. But the interesting thing is that when we come in, the client often remembers their assessment. They'll say, oh yeah, we've done a health assessment before. Somebody told us about those findings. In fact, here's the report if you want to read it. And some of them even say, we have this report. Can you help us implement the findings they gave us? So this is not a knowledge problem. The clients knew. The clients were told what needs to change. And that's what makes this fascinating. And that's what makes this unfortunate. And that's what makes this a little frustrating. So the first problem, I think, is that a recommendation is just not the same thing as an implementation plan. You should test your restores. Oh, duh. Great. Who? When? Which systems? Where do we restore it to? What do we do afterwards? How do we know it's good? Do we do a check DB? Do we run something against it? What happens if the test fails? Who gets told? Do we need a maintenance window for this? Whatever, right? The recommendation might be technically perfect, but if nobody can answer the questions that nag the person who has to do it and becomes their responsibility, it just becomes another line on a report that can get filed someplace in a messy bookshelf. You don't see my messy bookshelf. Well, a little bit, but anyway. So a finding without an owner and without a date and a task is just documentation. Another reason is normal life happens. We talked about that in one of our videos about the perils of being a solo DBA. A performance problem takes priority, and it's funner. Somebody needs a report. Disk space gets tight. There's a deployment. Somebody schedules 6 meetings at the same exact time, and you have to pick which one to go to. And suddenly, that critical recommendation from the assessment becomes, oh, we'll do it next month. And then you know how the story goes next quarter or next year, and you already know the ending of that story. And we see it all the time. And now some new DBA that replaces you or the other DBA or a consultant like us comes in, and we get to say, who the heck is running this place? And it's probably somebody who has a list exactly like yours and just also never got the capacity to fix it. Another reason is sometimes us DBAs don't really do ourselves any favors here. We tell management something like MaxDOP is wrong, or your recovery model isn't aligned, and Veeam is not doing things right, but you don't really explain it. We have a bad security configuration issue. The IT director, if we're not explaining it in a way that helps them prioritize and understand the risk and know what they need to do and what needs to shuffle and what their impact is. Because, how are they hurt if this doesn't get fixed? If we don't impact the business or describe the business impact, then they don't understand it. They don't get it done. And they have already a list of 47 things from just one sysadmin, and a list of all the things from the top being pushed down and the clients being pushed in and the SOC 2 people. So, they need to think about this in terms of, here's what can happen to the business if we don't do this. Here's how likely we think this risk is. Here's what it will take to fix. Here's the money, the time, the downtime, the reboots, the risks of the change, the risks of doing nothing, and here's what I would fix first. And here's the part that I think us consultants don't talk about enough. If I give you a brilliant report with 70 findings, I take my check from you, I wish you luck, and I come back a year later to discover that you did none of it, I have to at least ask myself whether I helped you enough. Because why are they still there? Did I not do a good job explaining it? Did I make your priorities obvious to you? Did I explain the risk in language that your business could understand? Did I give you an achievable first step? Did I help you pick the right first thing to do? And then the second thing, did we establish an owner for the tasks? Did I follow up with you? Yeah, I took your money. I got your report to you. I did what I was supposed to do. The contract has been met legally. But why did I do it? Why did you give me the money? Was it because you wanted a really good looking report? Or was it because you wanted to see what was bad and know how to fix it? So, and was my recommendation realistic in your environment? There are two kinds of best practices. There are best practices, and I say this, well, I'll say it anyway. There are two kinds of best practices out there. There's best practices that are right for you and right for your environment, and there are best practices that are right on some textbook someplace. So were my recommendations realistic for your environment? Sure, disable SA, but if you're using a vendor app that will not allow you to use anything else, is that helping you? Maybe we should have talked to the vendor. That does not mean that the consultant who did your health assessment owns your decisions. We can't own that. You and your business have to own that decision. You have to act. But if this happens over and over, I can't just shrug and say, well, we put it in the report. So what should we do? What's a better approach to handling this? When we think about health checks today, I really care a lot less about giving somebody a big list. I want you to know what's actually dangerous. Where am I going to get hurt? What do I have to fix first? What can wait? Who needs to be involved in the decision process? What decisions can't happen right away? Like if we say, reformat your drives to 64 allocation, and we don't say, by the way, don't do that tomorrow in production because you have live databases there, and somebody does it, that's not a good thing. That's not happened yet that I know of, but I bet you someplace out there, somebody has done that and said, wait, why is everything broken? So who needs to be involved in the decision process? What's the realistic next action? What requires downtime? What doesn't require downtime, but's going to blow away your plan cache and cause a few moments or an hour of some performance degradation? It's pretty simple. You have to have a finding. What is it? Why is it? How does it work? We want to explain the findings, I think, as consultants. What's the priority? Who owns these things? What's the date? And then we should follow up. And if those last pieces don't exist, the owner, the date, and the follow-up, we shouldn't be surprised when we see the same findings over and over and over. And this is, by the way, one of the differences from buying an assessment and having ongoing DBA ownership. A health check can tell you where you're exposed. Somebody has to do the work to unexpose, to fix it. Sometimes it's your internal DBA. Sometimes it's the person who can spell SQL because you don't have a DBA team. Sometimes it's a consultant. Sometimes it's your DBA as a service team working alongside you guys. But somebody needs to own the outcome. So at the end of the day, if you're considering a SQL Server assessment, whether it's from StraightPath, whether it's from any of our friends in the industry and community, whether you're just downloading a free tool and doing your own health check, don't just ask what's in the report. Don't just think of the report as the destination. Ask the questions, especially if you're buying something from somebody. What happens after you give me the report? Who's going to help me prioritize this? Who owns the next steps? Is it all on me? Who's going to teach me? Who's going to notice in 6 months if none of this happened? And it might just be an internal conversation to make sure there's accountability. Because at the end of the day, the best assessment in the world doesn't reduce a single bit of risk if it's stuck in a PDF.